In this first episode of the UX of our everyday lives, we're going to look at something that's really big. It's a big purchase that a lot of Americans and others around the world have made. And it's not a house, it's a car. And for many Americans, it's not just a car, it's a pickup truck. And historically, according to sales data, for many years, that truck was a Ford F-150 pickup truck. For better or for worse, America loves its big cars and it loves its pickup trucks. Trucks, cars, and the automotive industry have been undergoing this electrification phase right now, thanks to the success of Tesla, starting with their Model S, and now with these mass movers like the Model 3 and Model Y, electrification has become incredibly competitive, where every automaker now is making electric cars and has plans to eventually fully electrify their fleets. What's really interesting though, if you look at the electric pickup truck market right now in early 2024, you have a Cybertruck that's dystopian and futuristic. You have something that's refreshing and new like the Rivian. And then you have something that's traditional, proven, and yet bold by Ford. And we're gonna look at the design choices, both digital and physical, of these three trucks and talk about how these choices are actually influencing the future of electric cars, both in good and not so good ways that will hopefully be addressed by further awareness and regulatory bodies who have caught eye of these issues as well. So let's take a look at these trucks. The Cybertruck leaves an immediate impression with nothing but angular and sharp lines. And if you look closely, you'll see a few obvious and not so obvious triangular Easter eggs around the Cybertruck. Even in the back, it's incredibly flat with something that looks like an 80s retro vibe to it. It looks right at home in the movie Blade Runner or RoboCop, but also just incredibly sharp corners all around. I even ran into one of those corners while filming. The Tesla does have a more athletic stance than most pickup trucks do, and that's in part to this design ethos that Tesla had while developing the Cybertruck to have the utility of a pickup truck, but sports car-like performance figures. Even on the wheel well, you'll see more of its angular design, and you'll see this front fascia that's flat, which is quite normal for a lot of cars, let alone trucks and SUVs. But the front car would generally have something more of a curve and swoop, whereas you'll see here on the Tesla, it continues its sharp flatness all across the front of the car. While we were filming this black Cybertruck that has a slightly see-through wrap so you can still see the original stainless steel grain, another Cybertruck pulled up by us and we had an opportunity to compare them. You'll notice that this Cybertruck has the original aero cap covers, which this Cybertruck doesn't. These aero cap covers also indicate just a function of how Tesla operates, where it was discovered after these trucks were delivered to customers that these aero cap covers and the shape of them may be causing premature wear to the side of the tires. So most owners, it's in their best interest to actually remove them on here. A unique characteristic that you'll notice across all three EVs is it has this continuous bar across the front as its light bar. On the highway, it's quite clear how different the Cybertruck looks from all other cars on the road, even Tesla's own lineup. The Model X here shows how different of a design language and possibly unique the Cybertruck will be to Tesla's own lineup. Elon has even described the Model X as a Fabergé egg. Inside, Tesla continues their unique design language of a more Spartan interior centered with a large touchscreen. Some cars, like the Model S and X, have another screen behind the steering wheel. And all recent year Teslas now have an unfortunate trend of removing the stalks behind the steering wheel and putting controls like the left and right turn signal on the steering wheel. On the Cybertruck, these design decisions are somewhat excusable because of an innovation Tesla implemented called steer-by-wire. And that means that instead of needing to turn the steering wheel all the way around multiple times to make a turn, If I merely turn the steering wheel like this, the Cybertruck wheels can turn all the way at low speed. That means my thumb doesn't have to go hunting around for the proper turn signal as I'm doing a multi-point turn. I just have to turn it a little bit and hit the rear button. But steer-by-wire is kind of a proof of concept with the Cybertruck. Every other car in the market doesn't have it right now. Cars might all have this in the future, but right now, even for the rest of Tesla's lineup, you're going to be fiddling for that turn signal while turning your steering wheel many times. Choices like this, while attempting to push the industry further for how people experience cars, does have safety implications. Not having stalks to signal a lane change can make a car inherently less safe because of the additional cognitive load that's needed to perform this newly designed operation. Relying on a touchscreen, or even the car's own quote-unquote intuition to decide what gear to put you in to go forward and back, it's an incredibly new paradigm, and it is cool, but to a common user, these can have safety implications, let alone what happens if the screen freezes. It's not just the stalks to change your signals that have been removed, but now there's no physical mechanism to select your gear. We're in the Cybertruck, and it's really exciting. One thing that's immediately clear about the Cybertruck is just how clean this vehicle feels from a futuristic perspective on minimalism. Everything about the Cybertruck is this embodiment of Tesla design, this ethos of a large center screen, essentially eliminating the majority of buttons. The Cybertruck has one of the largest pieces of glass in any manufactured car. The glass windshield is enormous. Tesla is so far ahead when it comes to vehicle operating systems against the automotive industry that while they're still all trying to build decent shippable operating systems, the Cybertruck comes with a specially cyber-themed version of their new 2024 OS that has sleek animations like showing the frunk opening and closing. A lot of new cars, including the Cybertruck, have difficulty in rearward visibility and around the car. The Cybertruck uses high-def cameras and a large screen to help you see around the vehicle. So why did Tesla make a truck that looks so different from the rest of their cars? Let alone, why did Tesla make a truck that looked so different from every other truck on the market? For that, you need to understand a little bit of history of Tesla. So more than 2 years back, in 2012, Tesla had the Model S. Several years later, between 2017 and 2018, you had the Model 3 released to the public as well. The success of the Model 3 and Model Y from Tesla, both mass mover, kind of in that mid-range price of $40,000 to $60,000-ish, the sheer sales volume and success of those two cars especially were really hard to ignore because they were plucking away sales from many different segments of the market. You had Honda Accord buyers who were now willing to spend several thousand more dollars to get into a Tesla. And it could have been from a cost benefits standpoint, understanding at some point not paying for gas would pay off from a maintenance and cost of ownership standpoint, and also because of its technical prowess of being a Tesla. Those are major signals that companies can't ignore. It showed where consumers wanted to go to get into an electric car. And even right now, you might end up buying an electric car that might not even get updates over the air like a Tesla has been for over 10 years. So Tesla's lead in the market from a technological standpoint has been to a point where they have to challenge themselves. Full disclosure, I've had a Model 3 since 2018, and I've gotten to experience 6 years of updates. That's 6 years of some incredible new features and some sometimes questionable usability issues. Even as this video is being edited, both Tesla and Rivian announced software updates for spring 2024. Because Tesla has had such a significant market lead in terms of its technology, both for the vehicle operating system and its batteries, which leads to range and their supercharging network, the Cybertruck in a lot of ways feels like a victory lap. There is something about getting to walk around, see and sit inside this car in person that is very different from photos. Rivian's a brand new car company like Tesla, except it is literally in its infancy years right now. The Rivian R1T was their first product. The Rivian retains this familiar pickup truck body, but it brings something new to the table. You have this new fascia that is friendly, approachable, and indistinguishably a Rivian. And you'll also see some sleek design cues like flush door handles that gently pivot out to grab. The Rivian front fascia reminded me of the movie Cars from Pixar, and I think that's a good thing. I think having a truck that appears more friendly is a terrific choice for a brand new company and their first product into the crowded automotive space. When you walk up close to a Rivian, you'll see this advanced lighting cluster that becomes a key part of recognizing what a Rivian looks like. And this is consistent across all their cars now. You have this truck, you have an SUV version of it, and now you have a smaller SUV, the R2, and a hatch, the R3 coming out. Even on the back, Rivian continues this friendly design with the singular bar and bold but not in your face or ostentatious lettering for their brand. Like a few other EVs, Rivian's able to take advantage of those architectural designs with the large frunk and a clever new idea Rivian calls the gear tunnel, which is an additional area of storage accessible from both sides of the car, as well as the back row. The covers can even be used as a stool or a stepladder. Rivian has a two-screen setup. They almost feel like two Android tablets, two iPads that have been placed in front of where the traditional binnacle would be for a driver, with gauges and an infotainment screen for a narrow widescreen here, and then another widescreen tablet on the right-hand side. A few months back, Rivian pushed out an update that greatly improved the ergonomics for using some core functions of the car. You have driver controls that are quickly accessed. Now in this nifty menu, you're able to quickly adjust things like ride height, brake regen, and your stability amount. You're able to customize things like your on-road driving characteristics, all with easier access on the left-hand side and more secondary visual information over on the left-hand side. Something that stood out about Rivian's operating system was how much more legible it felt than the others, and I think this is in part to Rivian having great contrast as a design principle. As you can see as I'm tapping through the menu here, my selections are reflected with a crisp black rectangle. Rivian also uses black and white as their font colors in comparison to Tesla and Ford that use various shades of gray. All of these things add up to making the Rivian feel like it was more easier to glance while driving the car. Whereas Ford and Rivian trucks have a screen behind the steering wheel, the Cybertruck, like other Tesla models like the 3 and Y, has only the center screen and the dash. Tesla, for these screens, dedicates a chunk of it for autopilot visualizations. This is an interesting design choice because you really only get all the visualizations if you upgrade to full self-driving. There's some issues here where, one, you should keep your eyes on the road, and the other thing is these visualizations, regardless of what version of autopilot you have, whether it's FSD or not, it can give you a false sense of security, like shown here with this unfortunate full self-driving beta driver. The influence of Tesla is also shown in other places, like Rivian also integrating a vehicle dashcam system into their car. Rivian also followed the unfortunate trend of overcomplicating HVAC controls by putting them all into a touchscreen, and most of which buried behind a sub-menu, all of which is a bit difficult to operate while driving. Even things like adjusting the airflow of the vents are needed to be done with this touchscreen. The Ford F-150 Lightning is unmistakably a pickup truck, but it is an electric car. If you look carefully, you'll see the Lightning badging around the car, indicating that this is an all-electric Ford pickup truck. You can see in the higher trims of the Ford F-150 Lightning, Ford's also investing in more advanced lighting clusters like this one. So you might have noticed the Cybertruck does not have door handles and instead uses this button to get into the car. And there's a reason Ford doesn't do that. I can't believe that I'm doing a voiceover explaining door handle design, and I also can't believe that I forgot to turn my mic on, but
It's important to note that Ford is a historical company and the F-150 Lightning is super important to its bottom line. It's not going to mess with its customer base and the needs of people like construction workers to change the door handle design from something that works.
So we're sitting here inside the Ford F-150 Lightning, and a few things make an immediate impression. One, you have this giant touchscreen, and it's very well laid out in terms of its controls and visibility. The driver's seat on its own has before it a breadth of buttons, which I think many of them are very well designed for, again, this very diverse and established customer base. Ford implemented a knob in the bottom of their screen. It's not under the screen. This knob is literally on the screen itself, and it has a bunch of functions. It can adjust the volume, but if you begin to adjust the climate by touching any of the other icons related to climate, this knob now lets you to fine-tune an adjustment that you made, whether it's the temperature, the fan speed, and the heating or cooling of your seat.
An incredibly unique feature that Ford's sync system has is called Calm Screen, which blanks out the screen for a less distracting drive.
Ford has done a really good job truly making an operating system. When I say operating system, what I'm speaking to is this coherence between all of the interactions that I'm seeing across two screens, the giant touchscreen on the dashboard and the bin behind the steering wheel. Both are screens that have visuals and controls that are incredibly consistent and all speak to one system of operations and controls and visuals for the car. It doesn't feel jolted, and that's something that you'll see in other more traditional automakers. Everything that you're seeing with the F-150 Lightning, you're seeing a very consistent experience across all of the menus and all controls. You have a navigation scheme that's laid out well and easy to navigate. You have buttons and switches and things laid out in a way that seems quite intuitive as you get to use the Ford F-150 Lightning. It's important to note this because for legacy automakers, having a new operating system, let alone investing in a good navigation scheme and having great interaction models, is not common at all. It's a big reason why companies like Tesla and now Rivian have become quite successful. And now on a Ford, you're not necessarily compromising in terms of digital experiences. If anything, you're having things that are distinctly unique to Ford and are just great features to have. For traditional Ford pickup truck owners or just pickup truck owners in general, getting into an electric car may seem like a daunting task, and learning things like the ins and outs of charging is a challenge to the automaker to explain to these new users. When it comes to things like explaining charging, these are complex tasks that an automaker has to accomplish to audiences like a traditional pickup truck buyer or someone who has bought generations of Ford F-150 truck. Ford putting a screen like this that explains charging so well by showing the mileage of range, the percentage, and laying things out clearly in a dedicated screen is a great move towards that trust and that education.
A great use case for EVs, let alone large EVs like pickup trucks, is utilizing their large battery packs to serve as backup power for blackouts. The Ford F-150 Lightning was one of the first EVs on the market with this capability. The Cybertruck, which came out in late 2023, would also get this capability via a software update.
Ford has a good idea of who buys their trucks, and they know a chunk of them also use this as a mobile office. And in doing so, in addition to the outside of the car, Ford also has full-size outlets inside the car to plug in things like a laptop or other accessories.
Throughout Ford's pickup truck line, they've made some clever interior design and mechanism choices, such as this fold-out work surface table that makes the interior of the F-150 Lightning a mobile office. Ford took advantage of the lack of an engine and made an absolutely massive frunk, which can serve storage purposes in addition to also functioning as a work surface that has numerous outlets and the ability to be a washable, drainable surface. Here's another design quirk, the whip antenna.
Say whip. Whip. Now say cool whip. Cool whip.
Again, Ford knows their customers, and they know that for rural customers of all of their trucks, including the F-150 Lightning, having AM reception is incredibly important.
Something you won't see in a Tesla or Rivian are physical buttons to lock and unlock your car, to adjust your mirrors, and to save your driver's seating positions. Things like this have been moved into the touchscreen for better or for worse. Some owners love them. Other owners, especially new EV owners in a Rivian or Tesla, might find this excessive if not frustrating. For Ford, this is a clever move to continue this traditional design that a regular gas F-150 right now has, but it also adds a degree of usability and familiarity that the Rivian or Tesla can't have. If you're in construction and have gloves on, you're able to press these buttons with force and tactility that you just can't with a digital touchscreen. And when you think about all the new things that you might have to learn when getting into an electric car, keeping controls like this helps with that transition. Having physical controls like this is one less thing a Ford F-150 Lightning owner needs to have when transitioning into an electric car. They have this big touchscreen with all these other things and features to explore and learn. Having things like this is one less thing for them to learn. Whereas in a Tesla or Rivian, you have to go through that process and experience using your touchscreen to lock the car and adjusting your steering wheel and adjusting your side mirrors.
Something that caught me off guard was how incredibly quick the F-150 Lightning was. It is uncanny something this big is so blistering fast. And if you're wondering if Ford's going to take this slow traditional take on vehicle design, well, they also have the Mustang Mach-E. And with this crossover Model Y competitor, they took a few new and bold design choices like a wing-shaped door handle and a flush button to open the door, quite similar to the Tesla Cybertruck. Something that doesn't have enough public discussion has been how these trucks have been getting a lot larger. The hood height of the Ford F-150 is 50 inches from the ground. The Rivian comes in at 45 inches from the ground, and the Cybertruck is also 45 inches from the ground. Research has shown that vehicles with hood heights over 40 inches are 45% more likely to kill a pedestrian than cars shorter than that. These large vehicles, regardless of their safety systems, also put the lives of other pedestrian-like children at risk when they're driving around them in neighborhoods.
I think it's important to establish here that there is not a winner here. It's really important for the market to have this degree of choice. Having something like the Cybertruck and having something on the other end of the spectrum that's very traditional, like a Ford F-150 Lightning, are two endpoints that are necessary to have such a broader base of people who could become an electric car owner. I think both consumers, owners of these vehicles, and safety agencies across the world are noticing that putting far too many features into a digital touchscreen and needing to access those while driving is a significant safety issue. Your electric vehicle can be significantly safer from a physical perspective, but if you, the driver, can put yourself in risk because you're needing to access something while driving, that's a problem. So some takeaways. I think competition is a great thing. We're on the cusp of another great wave of electric vehicle adoption, and I think the things that Ford, Rivian, and Tesla are doing are the kinds of things that's going to influence electric vehicles moving forward like that. Competition is good, and making distinguished products is a good thing too. Car companies don't need to keep cloning each other and doing the exact same thing. Applying critical thinking and having ergonomics is just as important as well. If you're a car designer, or if you're working for one of these major automakers, think about the ergonomics of using a touchscreen while driving. For the most part, it's very limited in how easy someone's able to handle tasks on a touchscreen, let alone a large touchscreen, while driving. You want to automate that stuff behind voice controls or physical buttons where someone can have the muscle memory for the spatial placement and that physical feedback of pressing that button. This was episode 1 of the UX of our everyday lives. Stay tuned for the next episode where we look at how you search for things and where you search for things online might change very soon, and it might not be with Google.